everyone, and thank you all so much for joining us on our first Friday webinar of 2022. Today, I am joined by our managing attorney, Ruby Powers, and we're here to discuss on how to become a permanent resident through your 21-year-old citizen child.
Thanks so much for having me on I can't believe it's exciting, 2022. Wow. So just a little bit about me. I'm board certified, been practicing 13 years, and also wrote a book about law practice management for the American Immigration Lawyers Association. And we here at Powers Law Group have a very full service firm, which means that we do everything from help of individuals from family-based to naturalization, asylum, humanitarian court, removal, employment, investment. I don't know what I've already said, but everything that has something to do with immigration. So let's get started. So just a little bit of overview, the application process, and if the beneficiary lives outside or inside the United States, and anything else to consider. So if you're a US citizen, you can apply for a legal permanent residency, or we call green cards, for your parents, brothers and sisters, as long as at least you're 21 years old. Now, parents are considered to be immediate relatives, which sounds interesting, but really it means is the visa is immediately available and has some other protections as well for making it a little bit easier to adjust their status and get their green card. So there's no annual limit on the number of green cards, so you don't have to look at that visa bulletin. And for example, if you were to petition, as a US citizen were to petition for a brother or sister, and let's say the brother or sister's Mexican, there's like a 20-year wait. A lot of other countries, there's like a 14-year wait. So that's another, when they say immediate relative, that means they're not having to wait in the visa queue. So that's just a little bit of background. Now, if you want to start the process, I mean, obviously the very first thing is to screen your case with an attorney and make sure you have a good review. Make sure there's nothing in the past that we need to bring up. But the process, once they say everything is good, is to fill out the I-130. That's the petition for alien relative. And this, you have to show that the citizen is a citizen, whether they were born in the US or naturalized, and the parent is a citizen of their country, and that they have the child-parent relationship. So that's usually shown by the birth certificate. And you know, a US citizen can also petition for a step parent, but there's also considerations as to when that relationship started, how old was the citizen when their parents got married, things like that. So there's a lot of little things we have to look at. So you're going to ideally have a copy of your proof of your citizenship. You're going to need that as the birth certificate showing the parents' names, and similar proof of the relationship. And if you're trying to petition for both parents, then you need an I-130 for each one of them. Okay, so now if your relatives your parents in the situation you're trying to petition for are outside the country, you would file the I-130, and then you would wait for it gets approved, and then it would go to the National Visa Center. And then you would have to submit some more documentations regarding the DS-260 and the I-864. And so the I-130, like we said, it's all that proof of the relationship. And then the DS-260 is where has the parent lived and worked since they were 16, any problems with the law. And the I-864 is about money, and that the US citizen has enough money to support the immigrant. And then after all of that is you wait for a visa appointment. And then at the visa appointment, you have to have done your medical exam, and they'll ask some questions, and they'll go ahead and finish up the process. Now, I'm going to tell you, I haven't seen many cases exactly like this, where the parent, well, when I see a case like this, it's because the parent maybe has never been to the US. If the parent had been to the US in the past, they need to make sure that they never overstayed and triggered a bar, and that they didn't have any other complications like a deportation order or any crimes. And so a lot of times when I'm seeing this situation, it's the child came here when they were older, they became a naturalized citizen at some point, and then later they petitioned for their parents. They're not usually someone fairly young doing this. because if that were to be the case, probably the parent somehow had been in the US and there might be some inadmissibilities. So, but this is a possibility. And then let's say your parents are here in the country. So this is what's super duper duper critical. They need to have had a legal entry. They needed to have been paroled, admitted, inspected. They ideally come in with a visa. If they come in legally and then they have a 21-year-old child and there's no other problems, no crimes, no misrepresentation, no deportation orders, super clean, then we can do the green card process here in the country, and that's called the adjustment of status. But if there's any blemish, like they overstayed and they left and they came and went, or there's a deportation order, or they lied on a tourist visa application, then it's not going to be so easy. And in fact, we're going to have to do some Freedom of Information Act requests to do a check-in on their past and analyze the case, and it might not even be possible to do it. So those are some of the things we have to consider. One of the biggest takeaways I'd like you to have from watching this webinar, this video, is that if you're wanting to do this petition for your parents process, you need to make sure that before you turn 21, that the parents come have a consult and screen their case, because they might need to do a FOIA, they might need to pull some records, and you might want to do all of that so that when the child who grows up and turns 21, that you can go ahead and get started filing, and you don't have to be worried about some history and doing analysis and wait time that it takes to do FOIAs. So if you are adjustment eligible, you wouldn't have to wait for the I-130 to be approved. You can do everything concurrently, which is the I-130 and the 45. And if they entered without inspection, you cannot do this, and you definitely should talk to an immigration attorney like we were talking about. Because, for example, if you entered the United States and you overstayed more than a year after April 1st, 1997, and then you left, then you triggered a 10-year bar. And then maybe you came back in again. This gets a little bit messy for immigration law, and it's not as easy to do. And so that's why we have to analyze it. So a case that would be the cleanest, easiest in this situation is the individual came into the US legally and then has a 21-year-old or over US citizen child, and then we can do the green card process here in the country if there's no deportations, no misrepresentations, no crimes. So does filing a relative petition commit me to anything? Well, of course it does. Under the law, each person who immigrates based on the relative's position must have financial sponsor. And if you don't meet their qualifications, you can get a joint sponsor. So that's good. And this becomes really common, especially if the individual is looking to petition for their parents when they are, maybe just 21, and they might not have, they might still be in school, they might not be working or something like that, and they might not have the funds at the level needed to sponsor them. So those are some of the considerations, but I would just say the biggest takeaway is you should have a consultation with an experienced immigration, even if you don't hire them in the long run, but just double check that initially so that way you know that you're not going to have an issue. And honestly, you've waited this long, 21 something years, you might as well just make sure you're in good hands for the entire process, because if a green card application would be denied, it could lead to immigration court. And so those are things that you don't want to have happen. We help individuals. I've seen an uptick in these types of cases in the last year or two. So that's why we wanted to rerun this presentation again, because we've seen a big interest in it. And the other thing that happened, maybe you find out you're eligible for something else when you have that consultation and you didn't know it until you came in and you reviewed, because immigration policies and laws and interpretations are changing on a regular basis. And so it's something else to double check and look into. So Daya, how can people stay in touch with us going forward?
Of course. So you can subscribe to our YouTube channel, add us on Facebook, subscribe to us on literally everything. We're on all social medias. We're on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, TikTok, and we're posting constantly. We're doing updates. We also have these webinars every week on Fridays. And right here, you guys can see,
this is our schedule for the rest of January.
Okay, so next week, we're actually going to have a webinar on H-1B news and updates. It's going to be some good information just for anyone that's interested in that new H-1B visa. Well, not new, but the H-1B visa.
And actually thinking about what we're talking about in January, that reminds me, if an individual might not have entered legally, but did have a petition filed on their behalf, or they were included on a petition before April 30th, 2001, they might be able to use that, it's called 245I, to be able to allow them to adjust here without having to have had that legal entry.
So we're getting some good information all January.
Right, exactly. So we decided to tell you all the things that were super interesting and popular because we wanted to make sure you have it. And then all of these recordings are on our YouTube page, so you can always go back and take a listen. But yeah, definitely check out our TikTok page because that is getting some fun times over there. We're always
some good people there.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Well, thanks so much, and catch us next week.